Welcome to Bedtime Stories. The SALT SUITOR. Once upon a time a king had 3 sons, and he wished to know if his sons truly loved him. He sent for them one at a time. When his oldest son appeared, the king asked solemnly, "Son, do you love me?" "Father," said the oldest lad, "I love you more than all the gold and diamonds and rubies and emeralds on earth. You are more valuable to me than all these jewels." The king was pleased, and next he called his second son to his chamber. "Do you love me, son?" he asked. "Answer me honestly." "Father," said the second boy, "I love you more than honey and sugar and all the sweets in the world." The king was even more pleased. A smile on his face, then he called in his third son and asked, "Do you love me, son? Tell me the truth." "Dear father," said the third lad, "you are as dear to me as salt." When the king heard this, he became enraged. "Salt," he cried, "I am as valuable as salt, you say? How dare you cast such an insult on the king?" The boy trembled and tried to speak, but his father cried, "Hush, hush, be quiet," and called his servants to his chamber. "Take this lad up into the mountains and leave him there to die." The servants bound the third son and they rode into the mountains, but they could not bring themselves to abandon the boy with nothing to eat and nowhere to go. He had always been kind and generous to them. So they cut his bonds and said, "We cannot leave you to die. We will take you to a faraway village, and there we will leave you. But you must promise never to return or show your face in your father's kingdom." The third son, much relieved, agreed. And so he came to live in another land. After a few days, he learned that the king of this new land had died. According to the custom of this land, everyone would gather in the village square so that a new king might be chosen. That afternoon the third son joined the others when they gathered, and he listened closely as the villagers explained their customs. A captive bird would be set free. Whoever's head the bird settled upon would be chosen as the new king. The cage was brought out and the bird was released. It flew into the air, circled, and then, without a moment's hesitation, it flew down and landed on the third son's head. "This cannot be," some of the young men cried. "This man is a stranger. According to our custom, we must fly the bird 3 times before he has chosen the rightful king." So the next day the villagers met again. This time the bird flew into the air, glided and swooped, and once again it dived toward the ground and landed on the third son's head. The third day the same thing happened. Now everyone understood that he was meant to be their new king, and so he began his rule. He ruled so wisely and well that all the people soon loved and admired him and were glad they had followed their custom. Many years passed. The son was happy in his new land, and he loved his position and his people, but he always thought of his father. At last he sent word to his father's kingdom, inviting his father to a feast. The king, having no idea that the neighboring king who had invited him was his long-lost son, agreed to visit. Now the neighboring king summoned his cook and instructed him to prepare every dish for the feast, but without using any salt. "Not 1 grain of salt, do you understand?" he said. "But sir, the food will have so little taste," the cook argued. "No means, no salt at all," the king insisted. The cook bowed and agreed. The night of the feast came, and the father king arrived with his 2 other sons as his escorts. No one recognized the third son, for many years had passed, and besides, he too was dressed in an elegant royal robes just like the king. They sat down to eat. After the first saltless dish, King asked, "And do you like our food?" The father king smiled and nodded, though he thought the food was quite tasteless. After the second dish, he asked again, and once again the father king nodded. "Tasty," he said, but when the third dish came and he tasted this one, he grimaced. "Something is wrong. The Sun King asked. You look displeased. There is no salt in this food. The Father King said. Have you no salt in this country? Oh yes, we do have, said the Sun King. We have plenty of salt. Then why do you not add it to your food? Asked the Father King, quite puzzled. I gave orders to leave the salt out of your food, Sun King replied. I heard and understood that you do not like salt. Me, not like salt. We cannot live without salt. Our food will be tasteless and I surely cannot have tasteless food. The Sun King knew the time had come to reveal himself to his Father King. We cannot live without salt, he said, repeating his father's words. And when I told you many years ago that I loved you as much as I love salt, you sent me away to die. Now the old Father King recognized his son, and he also realized his own folly. He bent down and pleaded his son to find his graceful heart to pardon the terrible mistake he had committed years ago. The Sun King embraced the old Father King, and they wept in each other's arms. And the salt of their tears was as sweet to the father as to the son. If you like the story, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you for listening. Good night.